If you clicked on this video, you probably have some knowledge of what Tactics.Tools is. Maybe you've used it or tried to use it during a game of TFT. If you are anything like me, you've tried to use it to help you pick out augments, and that's about it. Delving further into the site leads to a morass of numbers, labels, and more data than you were probably prepared for or really know what to do with. That's where this series comes in. By the end of it, hopefully you'll understand better what Tactics.Tools is, what it's useful for, and how best to employ the information it provides to make you a better TFT player. We're going to be starting with the basics, but I think it's important not to skip ahead. For one, because if you click away now, it makes my videos less attractive to the algorithm, but also because this video is going to spend a lot of time on the why and how of this tool before we dig into what it tells us. And that understanding is super important, not just for Tactics.Tools, but any other tool or guide that you might use to play TFT. If you watched my You're Using Guides Wrong videos, link up above, you'll know how important I think fundamental skills are to understanding the game more broadly, regardless of the patch, comp, or even set that we're playing in. In a similar vein, having a broad understanding of Tactics.Tools will help you not just in the immediate, but in every future set. And I think it can help you ask the kinds of questions that will unlock immense fundamental knowledge of the game and how to play it. So here we go. Tactics.Tools 101. Part 1. Augments. When we first open up Tactics.Tools, it seems pretty basic. We have top comps and standard and double up, player search, and a ticker showing what augments are trending up and down based on the data Tactics.Tools pulls from the Riot servers. Pretty simple stuff. Along the top, we see a number of tabs, most of which have their own dropdowns, and this is the meat and potatoes of what we're going to delve into in this series. We have comps, stats, tools, players, and a team builder. The last two are pretty self-explanatory, and we're not going to cover them super in-depth in this series, but there's more than enough information nestled into these humble little tabs to eat up hours of our time if we wanted. And we do. Now, you most commonly see streamers and other players use the augments stats during their games. This is really useful for helping make decisions about your augments, since augments are such a huge part of the game, and having a resource that helps you make more informed decisions when it matters can give you a huge edge over opponents who don't know the relative strength and value of each one. Since this is the most common, and arguably the most useful, application for Tactics.Tools, it's where we're going to start. How to read and sort the information given and apply it to your game. It also, thankfully, may be the most straightforward tab that we're going to look at. It's a list of augments and helpful data about them. How many games have been played where somebody picked this augment, the average placement of people who picked it, the top 4 and win percentage of people who picked it, and the average placement based on when it was picked at 2-1, 3-2, or 4-2. Additionally, we can see a quick glance at top users. This shows the most commonly played units in conjunction with the augment. Sometimes this is extremely specific. Ascension tends to be best with ramp-up comps like a Hacker LeBlanc Gnar, Draven reroll, whereas more broadly useful and often described as generic augments might have an odd combination. As of this writing, Celestial Blessing 2's top users are Kai'Sa, Leona, and Misfortune. Sometimes units you're going to see on the same board, but not always. At its most basic, you can use this page to search for the augments you're being offered and see their overall average placement. Because statistics are weird, an average placement is 4.5, not 4, so keep that in mind when you're making decisions. Additionally, since we're looking at placements, a good rule of thumb for most data you'll see is lower equals better. An augment that averaged 3.0 means it averages 3rd place. An augment that averages 4.0 means it averages 4th place, and so on. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about numbers. I am by no means some sort of math whiz. I majored in English Lit, if that tells you anything. But one thing I do know is that numbers can only ever tell us part of the story. With augments being an evergreen mechanic in TFT from here on out, understanding augments and the importance of augment choice will go a long way in your future climbs. And when it comes to Tactics.Tools, the most important thing to remember is that Tactics.Tools is not playing your game. It is providing you information for you to hopefully make better decisions. This can sometimes mean picking an augment that is statistically worse than your other choices because it may be a good choice for your game right now. Let's take 3 examples. The top 2 non-emblem, non-hero prismatic augments offered on 4.2 as of this writing, which patch 13.8, not that it's that important, are Verdant Veil and the Golden Egg. Let's say we were offered those on 4.2 along with Stand United 3. Golden Egg averages a 4.11 placement. Veil averages a 4.10 at 4.2, and that's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. By contrast, Stand United 3 averages a 4.61, well below our middle-of-the-road average of 4.5. In possibly even most cases, we would not want to take Stand United 3. However, let's say we're low on HP and we don't have a combat augment. Of the 3, Stand might be our best choice despite having a lower average placement. Why? Well, Egg has a high placement in part because people who take the Golden Egg are usually already strong. If you're at 80 HP with a fully upgraded board, the payoff from Egg is worth trading some HP, trading some immediate value now for a big payoff later. It is an augment that further rewards players who are already in a good spot. If you have 40 HP at 4.2, are you really betting on that big payoff 11 turns from now? Veil is great for providing your team with CC immunity, meaning your units can't be stunned or disarmed, meaning they have more time to deal damage. But if you don't have a combat augment already, how impactful is that extra second or 2 going to be? In this spot, a bad augment might be the best play regardless of what the numbers say. The extra AP or AD from Stand isn't stellar, but it's a lot better than 2 augments that are effectively dead for you on your board. This is a classic trap that inexperienced players fall into. The data says this augment is the best augment rather than asking what's the best augment for me right now. Sometimes we have the choice of 2 or even 3 great augments and the data can inform us of what is the strongest of all of those choices. And far be it from me to argue with it in that case. But we must still be cognizant of the game we're playing right now. If you already have Redemption on your main tank and Hextech Gunblade on your carry, do you really need extra healing from Celestial Blessing? Or is there a better augment you could choose despite it being quote-unquote worse? Just to jump in with a little editing room addition, Frodan's video, VOD reviewing K3soju, touches on this at the 2-1 hero augment. The link will be down below. It's a great video for VOD reviewing and applies some of these exact concepts to a real game. Definitely go and check it out if you get the chance. That said, the information available to us does not stop there. Obviously, we have the checkboxes here for the augment levels: silver, gold, prismatic, and hero. We can sort specifically by the rarity to make the information a little easier to sift through. Additionally, we see tabs for single, pairs, and trios. The page defaults to single, but what if it's 3-2 and we want to see what best pairs with our 2-1 hero augment? The pairs and trios tables allow us to see what augments might go best together according to the data. Finally, let's look at the expand button, the double-sided arrow next to the top users. If we click this, we can see a veritable orgy of information. Let's take a look at Portable Forge, an extremely popular and versatile augment. When we expand it, we can see it's almost always taken when offered. We can see the average placement information from before as well as placement distribution. Forge is pretty balanced in that people who take it very rarely go 8th, but it isn't guaranteed to garner you a top 4 either. Below this, we see units, traits, and augments, each with their own stats and sorting. Play rate is how often a unit appears on the final board with this augment. Games is the sample size that this percentage is going off of. Place is the average placement. Remember, lower is better when you have this unit and this augment on your final board. Top 4% and win rate operate similarly. As of this writing, if you have Echo and Portable Forge, you're going to top 4 about 57% of the time and win roughly 15% of the time. You probably noticed that I skipped one category of data, and that is not by mistake. Okay, let's talk about Delta, okay? Delta is one of those things people ask about constantly because it's the least self-explanatory. So here I am, hopefully to explain it to you the best that I can. If we hover over Delta, we can see the caption, delta shows the difference in average placement of the combination of unit and augment compared to the average placement of the unit without the augment. Lower is better. Okay, what does this mean? What this means is that if you play this unit with this augment, your outcome is typically X placements better than the unit just on its own. Oftentimes, this difference will be negligible. Negative 0.002 placements or whatever is functionally zero for our purposes. For Portable Forge, the delta is likely to be a small amount because it's such a generic augment. However, if we look at a trait like Exiles 1, we can see significant variance. Some tanks go extremely well with Exiles, while other units seem actively harmed by the augment. Malphite is played with a great deal of other frontline units, and it can be hard to position properly and get a lot of value, while a phenomenal solo frontline tank like Garen can use the additional shielding to exceptional effect. We might think Exiles is a good augment across the board, but the delta shows us that we should be careful when playing certain units with certain augments. We can look at the same data for traits and augments as well. We can see that Exiles pairs really well with Anima Squad and Spellslingers, two traits that feature front-to-back styles of play that rely on their frontline units to stall, while backline units ramp up and put out big damage later in the fight. When Exiles 1 is run with 6 Spellslinger or 3 Anima Squad, we see the average placement jump over 1/2. If you are fighting for 4th place, the extra tankiness provided by this augment is likely to be enough to give you the edge and gain you LP rather than losing it. If you were fortunate enough to pick up Stand United alongside it, you're getting an even larger boost. Stand United 3 and Exiles 1 have a negative 1.29 delta, well over an entire placement. But wait a second, the sample size for that last combination is only 18 games. Maybe that's not quite enough to give us an accurate understanding of the real delta, but still, of those 18 games, players top forward over 75% of the time. It makes sense that this is a powerful pairing. You have tank units that are living longer, allowing your backline units to ramp up and deal more damage later in the fight, and Stand United 3 is amping that damage up even further. Subsequently, we can see that healing augments, Second Wind, Thrill of the Hunt, are expected to do a bit worse. Why? Because we're kind of losing value on these augments as a result of our increased sustainability. If Second Wind kicks in just as your unit shields are expiring, you're basically down an entire augment. That's not super helpful. When we get used to accessing this information and interpreting it well, we can make even better decisions than simply what's the best average placement of the augments I'm given. This takes time and practice and isn't always going to be necessary, to be honest with you, but it is nice to know that information is a few clicks away in case we want or need it. So that's the basic understanding of the most commonly used functionality of Tactics.Tools, but in truth, we've honestly only scratched the surface of the information at our disposal. In the next video, we're going to take a look at the Units tab and how to understand and interpret the best in slot for all units in the game, and much more. I look forward really to seeing you there. If this video has been helpful or informative to you in some way, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you want to see future videos in this series, as well as my meme videos, other guides, and educational content, whatever pops into my head, please consider subscribing to the channel. It costs you nothing and helps my videos get recommended to more people. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching, and I'll see you again for part 2.